today I would like to share with you from either how the cultural difference, aging difference, and social support difference in coping with COVID-19 from perspective in China. And also, I would like to share with you some thoughts on cultural resources for lifespan development, especially mental health maintenance and promotion. For example, at individual level from other language, that's my personal experience. Okay, next, please. As you know that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected different regions with different occurrence. From this figure, you can see that America and Europe, the Caucasian population has been affected much more than Asia, Africa, and even the Mediterranean area. Next, please. Given that occurrence for the infected patients are normal distributed with regards to the age group, as you can see from this picture, the peak and the distribution at any time are quite normal. But if you see the death rates, next please. You can see that there's much higher death rates for senior elderly, either from this over 65 or 75, especially 75. You can see that from early last year, early this year, there's two peak groups, all come from elderly. So age difference and cultural difference or regional difference are quite specific. This is a trend. They taught us that senior elderly are most vulnerable regarding the death rate. So given that the infection, everybody has the possibility to be infected in the pandemic, but for senior elderly, because of the basic baseline of health status, they are more vulnerable to die, okay? So this is a basic idea we had or background in the talk following. Thank you. Next, please. This picture gives you a more detailed difference to see that mortality. As you can see that in each country in Europe, this is data from Europe, there's still some population age difference from Denmark to England, but if we differentiate the age group from 0 to 64 and 65 above, you can see the distribution has shown quite dramatic difference, especially for Western Europe. There's a significant death rate for senior elderly. Next, please. Here's data for Philippine population for confirmed cases, active cases, days, and recoveries. You can see that normal distribution regarding the age group for infection, but for the days, mostly come from the elderly. up to 60 years old. For recovery, of course, in every age group, especially for middle-aged, because of the basic health status. Next, please. And this give you some example, compare China, Italy, Spain, New York, states representing United States and United Kingdom. If you see here, the up to 60 years old, the death rate keep increasing dramatically compared with such other age group. In every country, China, Italy, Spain, New York, United Kingdom, and in total, this is a similar trends for everywhere, including China. Next, please. So here give you a red bar. Well, in considering this situation, my area is aging psychology, so we ask, what about the elderly inhabitant in Wuhan city, where the pandemic outbreak early last year? We have for follow-up investigation, try to find the coping process for different age group based on stress buffer access. We try to find the familial support, friend support, and other support during the pandemic, especially at the beginning. Is there any stress response or psychological symptom concerning anxiety, depression, and somatization? This is a normal physical or psychological or mental reaction to the public events like pandemic. Okay. Next, please. So we're running 3 investigations. The first one, we try to focus on the perceived social support, whether or not negatively predict the psychological symptom of the elderly. And family support was more important than other support. That's our finding. And it could significantly predict the mental health of the elderly. This means that elderly sense more support from family rather than compare with the younger generation in the same family, because of the online information is more open for the younger generation than elderlies. So in study 2, we try to investigate the elders and youth, try to compare whether or not they report a comparable level of mental symptom in general. And we found the elderly, their mental symptoms were buffered more by family support than by friend and other support. So the 3 resources of social support, family, friends, and other, like a societal, elderly benefit more from the family support, okay? And we also have a following up investigation and found that there's no long-term change in the mental health status of the elderly after the pandemic, but the long-term protective effect of perceived social support on mental health was verified too, after 3 months, 6 months, and a year. So this finding told us that given the death rates, the data shows that senior elderly are more vulnerable in the pandemic, but the mental health and also the social support keep almost the same with the younger generation. So this is a good news. It means that we, especially at least in China, in Wuhan, the quite sensitive area because of the outbreak of the pandemic. But elderly mental health keeps this the same as the younger generation. Okay, so aging difference seems not so significant concerning the mental health, rather than the physical health or vulnerability of physical sensitivity to the pandemic. Next, please. Next, please. So there are some culture-specific coping strategy. We divided into 3 categories. The first one is the decision-making process or executive compliance, and also traditional Chinese medicine. This 3 areas is basically backup for China, because the decision-making for lockdown in the first place, and also the nationwide lockdown policy has been effective, and also for the people, the whole population in China showing the much higher compliance for the lockdown policy at the national level. This is almost a miracle as I see it, especially compared with the Western world. The compliance from the common civilian is very important in the shutdown, and also the dramatic coping of the pandemic. Of course, we have traditional Chinese medicine, which is so important that early last March, the infection, the death rates, and also the severity of the whole pandemic has been controlled, simply because of traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, we have a long history in China for coping the public health event like COVID-19 pandemic in the long run, and also from central government to local hospital and common civilians all trust traditional Chinese medicine, and this is very important. Okay. Chinese psychologists, we did at 3 levels. We did in coping. First, we training psychologists all around China, try to provide them, build their capacity in coping the pandemic together with other professionals. So between profession, especially psychology, psychiatrists, medical staff, and social workers, we work together at all levels, from the national level, for example, Ministry of Crisis Intervention. We recommended scholars or experts in crisis intervention from psychological perspectives at 10 national scholars, then over 156, as I remember, at provincial level. And then we are trying to build up about 300 scholars at local level, okay? And we work together, of course, from central government to provincial and to local district, even community level. Medical staff and social workers, especially in ARCAS governmental system, we cooperate with Ministry of Crisis Intervention, as I mentioned, that recommended scholars to the ministry, and they were included in the teams at either national level or provincial level. Okay. Then we try to evaluate the effectiveness of this kind of coping strategy from either client's perspective, staff perspective, and the collaborators. And of course, this kind of work has been supported by governmental officials at a different level, by colleagues from other professions, and also psychologists working at either campus from primary school, middle school, college, and also at community. And also even we solicit about 3,000 psychologists, including private clinics in nationwide. So many training program has been done online, okay, and also prepare the pamphlets, prepare the free lectures, prepare the free online counseling, and so on. Next, please. So every people was infected with different coping strategy. But for me, I enjoy the traditional culture because I like Chinese poetry, I like calligraphy, I like painting, I like silk cutting, all kinds of arts of language. So I'll give you some example about the Chinese scripts. Well, for the character, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and 2,000 years ago, we have different style, okay? And even the cursive, Li Shu and Kai Shu, all different script. Next, please. To give you some idea about this, for example, the fish. This character, this fish has been imaged like this 4,000 years ago, and like this 3,000 years ago, and like this 2,000 years ago, and 1,500 years ago, like this. And this kind of script we still use nowadays. We call it a holographic image for the nature, for the reflection of natural creature, okay? So this kind of difference has its own aesthetic beauty, okay? And which attracted a different personal interests, personal preference, and so on. Next, please. So we Chinese like calligraphy like this. We write it and has it framed and hang it on the wall at each either office, studio, dining room, or even sleeping room. Okay, for what? For priming, okay? For a positive contents, this 4 character means lucky is fortune, okay? So there's a beauty, of course, itself, aesthetic beauty from the character, from the stroke, from the who artwork. But the content itself has primed the positive emotion and mind flow, and also in long run have the flourishing status, which kind of a positive emotion has strengths at either individual level or group level in coping the harsh reality, okay, like pandemic, okay. Next, please. So if you have the ability to write poetry and you write it by calligraphy your own and with a seal, this is a calligraphy give us more mind flow, which has reappraisal the cognitive ability, then in facing the social dissonance, okay, like the difficult situation in the pandemic, okay. So this is an example with calligraphy. Similarly, with the case of painting, poetry, seal cutting, which means that you focus attention on the arts itself with positive emotion embedded, and also the mindfulness practicing will give you the release the negative emotion to some extent, okay. This is a tradition where in China, a scholarly practice as a daily basis for more than 2,000 years, okay. I believe that in your country, either Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines, you have your own local arts where mind flow was elicited, and also cognitive reappraisal procedure has been primed in harsh reality, okay, that's daily basis. Next, please. Next, please. So if you want to know more about Chinese culture, especially the emotion in Chinese culture, I recommend this book, Louis Sanarajin, Professor Louis Sanarajin. She is actually a Chinese born in Taiwan, but immigrant to United States at 8 years old. She has been working in the United States for over 30 years. But all the time when she talked with colleagues, she found that quite difficult because of the difference from basic concepts to rationale in understanding the nature, understanding the human being, understanding the nature human being interaction, okay? So in his book, he explained why Chinese people like poetry, why Chinese people like Buddhism, like Confucianism, like Taoism, okay? Why Chinese people like calligraphy, okay? Why poetry and calligraphy practitioner, I mean the daily practice as arts of language can maintain and promote mental health for scholars, okay? So this is a book I would like to recommend to you if you want to have more idea about what I'm talking, especially the psychological, humanistic mechanism, okay, for those scholarly practice. Okay, next, please. So for the cultural general coping strategy, I would say from three aspects. First one is public health crisis in coping with medical and non-medical, all kinds of methods. We call it integrated coping system, from individual to familial, communal, societal, and even national level, okay? What I'm talking earlier about arts of language practicing, which have a good effect on the personal harmony or interpersonal harmony. But at outlier, at a familial level or communal level, some non-medical interference needed. For example, cooperation, like psychologists cooperate with psychiatrists, social workers, and medical staff. It's necessary. So given that either international, individual or group level, all kinds of measures needed, but integrated coping system, it should be developed at either individual or group level. But we have different talents, we have different interests, we have different healthy status at the basic level. So individual difference, group difference, cultural difference should be considered in this kind of coping strategy, okay? Therefore, we need to prepare a team and also research for a reasonable policy in preparation for the future in a similar occasion, okay? For the team, we have been working together with, I'm also past president of the Chinese Psychological Society. I had been working together with China Social Association for Social Psychology and also China Association for Mental Health. This is three level of national association work together under the leadership of the Ministry of Health. We drafted the policy, drafted the recommendation at different stage of the pandemic for different group. For example, early last year, right after the outbreak, students, because of the lockdown, students need to be with their parents 24 hours. This is a big challenge for either kids and parents, okay? Because the familiar dynamic changed, the strength keep increasing, okay? So we have many online, free online counseling, even the hotline to help those in need, okay? Other consideration like a job market, which is severe everywhere. I hope that a similar case holds for every country, including yours. Because of the shutdown, because of the lockdown, the business is even more tough for those company, especially private company. Okay, so job market become more severe situation, especially for those young graduates, for newcomers in the job market. They need more wisdom. They need more. They are facing more challenge in finding the suitable job. Of course, economic status keep changing, and the intense to a level, to an extent that even the daily life become difficult for some family. Okay, everywhere, not only in Asia, but also in Europe, in America, similar. So life in community become turbulent. Okay, as you may notice from the news that new cases find all around China. So given that we can travel, basically we can travel everywhere in China, but you need to provide the test, prove that you are not positive in a test. Okay, sometimes you need to have the vaccination, given that the vaccination is still optional, not compulsory. But life challenge is real for everyone. Okay. Next, please. So I would share with you some more consideration. For example, in Transcendence. Okay. We Asian people, we believe the cultivation rather than Western people from Christian, from Islam, from Judaism, because believe salvation. Okay, the cultivation means that human activity can gain the transcendence to God. Okay, but salvation itself means that only God can solve the problem, to solve the harsh reality, which is a different philosophy about life, of the meaning of life, okay, especially in facing the life risk, okay, such as COVID-19 pandemic. This will, of course, induce different interpretation for the harsh reality, and also induce a different coping strategy because of the resources difference. Okay, so I would suggest you to read this article by Professor Lawrence Kishmaya in McGill University. He said that the psychotherapies, he said that, no, back up this former slides, please. Do I run out of time? Why so quick? I think I still have time. Would you please get back? Yes, please. Back more. One more, please. No. Lawrence Kishmaya. Yes, please. Thank you. He said that the psychotherapies are distinguished from other forms of symbolic healing by their emphasis on explicit talk about the self. the concept of person. His idea is that egocentric or individualistic concept of person is Western culture, okay? But it's different from sociocentric, ecocentric, and cosmocentric culture, okay? Given that all of us existed at this 4 level, ecocentric, sociocentric, ecocentric, and cosmocentric, at different situation. But the theory or the meaning of life embedded in the concept is quite deeper. Okay, this means that we need to develop a personal strategy in coping pandemic, and also to personal strategy in maintaining and promoting our mental health, physical health, or spiritual health. Okay, so this is I think Professor Kishmir has mentioned a very good question for all of us, especially psychologists. He himself is a psychiatrist, but he reminds us we need to pay attention to cultural concept of the person. Okay, next, please. So again, we found that this cultural practice like this Tai Chi at daily basis, if you come to China, you can see almost everywhere in the park, people practice, okay? And my colleagues has proved that this kind of practice can improve either brain function, brain structure, and mental health, physical health, spiritual health, okay? You may have some idea about the Tai Chi Chuan. I will not explain too much on that, but if you want, I can share with you more references on the scientific study on the health promotion effect. This kind of technique, we have so many in the long run, in long history developed. I'm sure that in Asian culture, each culture has this kind of skill, okay, to benefit common civilians. Next, please. Next, please. This is to show you the structural, working memory, the effectivity, and also structural, the sickness. This is our own study showing the cultural difference about the stock market. Okay, there's a color psychology. Or people have a different emotional reaction to color. Okay, we compare the college students. Next, please. We compare the college students and stalkers at the same age. We found that there's a dramatic difference between the intelligence tests. We compare the college student stalkers. Then, next, please. We priming them with different color. For example, for stalkers, their anxiety was almost the same compared with the priming with the green color and the red color. For college students, most of them prefer most of them, the anxiety come from, more anxiety come from the red color. But for stock car, green color elicits more anxiety because in China, green color means bad, okay? This is for IQ test. For college students, green elicits much higher IQ, but for stalkers, the green color priming them become more stupid, okay? Less clever, I'd rather say. Next, please. And we compare Chinese students and German and Russian students. We found that their sensitivity to either beneficiary or observer are dramatically differ. We found that Chinese students think that the world is okay, but myself personally live in a bad situation. But for foreign students, they believe that the world is not so good, but I'm okay. So this will kind of offer different dramatic comparison for interpretation of personal life and the world. Okay, next, please. Next, please. So this kind of a transcendence give the different interpretation and become the very good resources for strengths, okay, at either individual level or group level in facing the harsh reality, like the pandemic, okay? Next, please. So there is a bereavement in the pandemic, while the religious belief become more important. You know, in 2008, we have a winter earthquake. Because of the huge loss of life and the family belonging, there's a huge emotional reaction, okay, in the bereavement. The same year, 3 months later, in the same area, Yushu, there's a glance, mud glide, which also have a huge life lost, but the group funeral show the different dynamic. Next, please. Tibetan people believe they are Buddhist. In the collective funeral, the monks praying for those deceased. The opposite place is all the relatives left behind sit together. So religious belief have a detailed interpretation about life, about death, about spirits after death, okay? So those left behind have a good explanation for the future, for the life, for the death itself. So these have elicited different behavioral reaction. Okay, next, please. Next. So I would recommend to you the two articles. First one is the weirdest people in the world. The second one, next, please. Most people are not weird. These two articles written by 3 psychologists in University of British Columbia in Canada, they found that, next please. They found that in the top journal, from 2003 to 2007, 96% of the subjects are Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. So-called, they are weirdest people, because this population only represent 12% in the world. But their representation in top journal of psychology was 96%. So this is kind of a dramatic conflict, okay? There's a pre-summary that Caucasian people can represent human being, which is weird, I think. At least Asia, China, people are quite different. Next, please. This means that over 67% of Asian people can only represent 6% in the top journal of psychology. Okay, next, please. So I hope that we Asian psychologists, especially younger generation, have more goal engagement in psychological coping to prepare for the opportunities in the long run and recover from primary control to secondary control. Okay, next, please. Because psychology as a discipline and a profession needs younger generation. Thank you.